In the 1980s and 90s, a trend in cartoons developed where older shows would be rebooted with their main characters reimagined as kids' versions of themselves. It was a mostly fleeting trend, with the majority of the shows lasting only a brief while. A few, however, did manage to find lasting success, one of the most fondly remembered being 1990's Tiny Toon Adventures. While admittedly more of a spin-off than a reboot, Tiny Toon Adventures follows a class of new, younger toons attending Acme Looniversity, studying to become famous cartoon characters under the tutelage of the classic Looney Tunes, acting as faculty members. The series proved to be wildly popular, featuring the classic slapstick and comedic wordplay of the original Looney Tunes shorts, combined with, at the time, pop culture references and meta humor. The show ran for 2 seasons, with 98 total episodes, 2 television specials, a full-length movie, and would go on to win multiple Emmy Awards, before its end in 1992, lying dormant for the next 28 years, before it was announced that Tiny Toons would be making its grand return. The revitalized series, now titled Tiny Toons Looniversity, would be produced by Cartoon Network, who ordered 52 episodes before the series had debuted publicly, signaling the company's faith in its product. With the excitement came trepidation. A new art style, redesigned characters, and potential plot lines were enough to make fans curious. But as behind-the-scenes details emerged, so did concerns over the creative direction, namely due to Tiny Toon Adventures creator Tom Ruegger not being invited to return in any capacity, nor were several of the original show's voice actors. And perhaps most controversial, the change of Buster and Babs from friends and romantic counterparts to siblings. Skepticism was at a high, but original producer Steven Spielberg, who came back to oversee the project, called this new version the best iteration of Tiny Toons he'd ever seen. As of September 10th, 2023, the first 10 episodes of the first season were released. So with all the anticipation, how did the show turn out? Let's check out the first batch of released episodes of Tiny Toons Looniversity. In evaluating Tiny Toons Looniversity, comparisons will be made to its predecessor, Tiny Toon Adventures, not to determine which is better, but to contrast, in order to highlight their differences and appreciate what Looniversity does new. The 2 versions follow the same central premise. A cast of new, young cartoon characters attend Acme Looniversity hoping to earn their Toon degrees in order to become Looney Tunes. Both shows employ a 30-minute runtime, with Adventures episodes often made up of 2 or 3 shorter, non-related segments, while Looniversity tells a main, singular story with an intersecting side plot featured throughout. Aside from the aforementioned formats, the shows differ in their handling of overarching storylines. Adventures episodes stand on their own. No matter what happens, by the start of the next episode, things revert back to the status quo. With Looniversity, there's a general, ongoing story that doesn't require being closely followed to fully appreciate the show. Having said that, there are references to previous events and ongoing character developments that do reward faithful viewers. This is due to Looniversity focusing more heavily on the show's premise. Ironically, Adventures seldom took place at the university. The first act may be a Coyote Roadrunner style sketch at the local park, and the next we might find characters protecting wildlife and Antarctica. It was always a surprise where and what kind of escapades the characters would get into. Looniversity forgoes the grab-back approach to narratives in favor of each story centering around some aspect of college life, be it learning to live with a messy dorm mate or selecting an elective to fill out basic level college course requirements. As someone who looked forward to the episodes and adventures that took place at the school, this is a prayer answered. Learning to become a Looney Tune, the wacky classes they take, it's all realized here, as the entirety of Looniversity is set somewhere on campus. The coffee house, the dorms, the auditorium, all act as frequent settings, making the campus feel fully fleshed out. The school wouldn't be nearly as animated, however, were it not for the staff. The original Looney Tunes are back. Formerly filling in as the teachers, now they hold various positions around the school. Bugs is still a teacher, but now Yosemite Sam is security, and hilariously, Granny acts as the school's dean. Whereas Adventures would showcase the classic tunes and elevated cameos, Looniversity upgrades their roles, being more prominent and integral to plots, never feeling shoehorned in solely to include the characters. Because they maintain these diverse job titles, the encounters with the student body feel natural, though still as exciting and wacky as hoped for. The Looney Tunes keep to their true and tried personalities, and it's the main cast that sees the most significant changes. Expanding on Buster and Babs as the focal point of Adventures, Looniversity increases the main cast to 5 characters, now including fan favorites Plucky Duck and Hampton, who come back with the same qualities that made them as entertaining as ever. Plucky is still a defensive narcissist who can dole out criticism but not take it. And Hampton is still a sweet cherub of a pig, always one misstep away from becoming a neurotic mess. Simply bringing back these characters would certainly be enough, but they're reintroduced with new backstories. Plucky now is a spoiled overachiever, used to only receiving the best educations at the finest institutions to hone his unparalleled talents, expecting to win every award and be recognized for the future star he is, and shocked when things don't go his way. Hampton, meanwhile, is now the son of a famous Toon starlet, pressured to sacrifice his dream of going to medical school to follow in his mother's footsteps, constantly worried he'll be unable to live up to her lofty expectations. These given paths for Plucky and Hampton help to make the two feel fresh, as if they were entirely new characters. It's fun to fall in love with them again and see the way they grow with these challenges. The third member of the new group, and the character who is completely revised, is Sweetie Bird. Little more than a rarely used peripheral character in Adventures, Sweetie is now an angsty punk rocker with a big heart. Fueled with a raging intensity, Sweetie is prone to flying off the handle, often in loud excitement, wanting to support the people around her. It's funny seeing this tiny pink bird draped in a leather jacket and studded bracelet, screaming in an angry tone at the top of her lungs words of encouragement, and is definitely the best old newcomer to the series. Despite Sweetie being totally reimagined, it's the adjustment to Buster and Babs that has garnered the bulk of attention. Close friends and occasional love interests in Adventures, Looniversity alters the duo relationship to that of brother and sister. This left fans clamoring. What would this mean for Looniversity? Was it a blatant disrespect for the series, fueled by a team of people wanting to revise long-standing institutions for the sake of flexing their newfound creative power? After watching the collection of the first 10 episodes, I can say assuredly, the change is not a negative. Adventure's version of the rabbits did engage in mutual displays of affection, but it was never the fundamental theme of their interactions. Buster and Babs, reconceptualized in these new positions, are able to further explore their history and growing future through this modern take. On the update to the bunnies, showrunner and executive producer Aaron Gibson comments, "I wanted to dive into a brother-sister relationship that looked really symbiotic and collaborative and supportive, not antagonistic. Seeing two people who are really on the same page, and then how do people who are so close make new friends? You know, find out who they are by these new relationships, these new college experiences, while still having fun and doing the dumbest stuff you'll ever see on TV, but having story and plot points and character development. Because the two now share a branch in the same family tree, doesn't mean all that much else has changed regarding who they are. Buster is still the easygoing, laid-back, cool guy, but now also a bit more codependent, needing the support of his friends more than ever as he finds his footing in his new surroundings. Babs, on the other hand, is excited by the opportunity to explore what the college experience has to offer, throwing herself into her creative side, as she's constantly challenged by her own preconceptions about herself and others. Outside the core five, many of the side characters are brought back in their same loony forms. Fifi LaFume sports a black turtleneck, Shirley now has bangs, and of all the secondary bit players, she's the one who may have benefited most from the long layoff. Always funny, and a high point whenever making an appearance in Adventures, her new age persona was goofy fun, based on how little the other characters understood about her beliefs. Back with the same spiritual tenets, the current mainstream acceptance of these practices makes it unique to look back at how ahead of the curve the Adventures writers were with this trend coming full circle. A few new faces do pop up in very limited appearances, but the biggest new addition of a now old character is Lola Bunny, making her debut in 1996's Space Jam. Opting to go with a freshly conceived vision, this Lola Bunny is the school's executive chef, and is perfect in every way, being a highly proficient skateboarder, master of the kitchen, and idolized and beloved by all she comes in contact with. It's a silly start to her, but is the only side ever seen, which ends up being underwhelming to watch. The cool factor she elicits isn't balanced out with anything, so she's the infallible being that never faces any real conflicts. What she lacks most is a pendulum swing to the other side of what would make her loony. Perhaps most important is the question of the show's humor. Point blank, is it funny? In short, yes. Looniversity thankfully lives up to the towering heights of Adventures by emulating much of the same styles of humor acted out by the earlier Tiny Toons. The physical comedy of being smashed with mallets and anvils is the star yet again, along with smart aleck retorts, wordplay, and hijinks that would make Bugs Bunny himself proud. The writing team is so sharp, they're able to capture what made Tiny Toons so endearing originally and building on it here. The only truly noticeable difference between the show's comedic sensibilities are their tones, in that Looniversity has a constant aura of positivity about it. Adventures could have a mean streak to it when called upon, with characters making fun of each other, pointing and laughing, snickering and sneering, to the point of the toon on the receiving end leaving an obvious embarrassment. In many cases, it led to the character at the center of the shame overcoming what brought them humiliation, turning it into self-satisfaction in the process. This mischievous spirit is never remotely attempted in Looniversity, instead opting for teamwork and camaraderie so that they may build each other up, with the most extreme form of malevolence being light, good-natured ribbing. Ironically enough, adventures in Looniversity do manage to date themselves, using very of-the-time gags that can immediately place to when these shows were created. Adventures, thriving with its meta-commentary and fourth-wall breaks, also includes many topical jokes and caricatures of celebrities parroting David Letterman, Roseanne, and William Shatner. While the jokes themselves are funny, the impact due to lack of cultural relevance does damper their overall effectiveness. In Looniversity's case, it's a particular sight gag that will forever identify this as a post-2010s cartoon, with the use of close-ups on characters' faces to gross out viewers, playing up the disgustingness of baggy eyes, unshaven stubble, mucus running from bulbous noses. It's an oddly popular animation trend that will be easy to look back on and pinpoint which era this show debuted in. Considering all the positives, there are a few new additions that do take some time getting used to. Starting with the new voice cast, they're completely unique unto their own. Hampton in particular sounds nearly identical to his original voice actor, but they're not the definitive versions, which isn't a slight, more of a testament to how iconic the original Tiny Toons voices have become. The other distinction between the two are their respective art styles. Adventures had varying levels of quality in their animation. Completely hand-drawn, the early and later seasons especially looked bizarrely rubbery and consistently off-model. As the series progressed, the artwork improved, with its high point being the Vacation TV movie, where the movements and characters looked downright gorgeous, against full, lush backgrounds that gave an impression of real depth. Looniversity has an immediately clean look to it, with no discernible ways for it to get any better. And though it bypasses the lows of Adventure's haphazard work, it never achieves the beautiful heights either, with the backdrops feeling as little more than generic set pieces. Having a balanced comparison between the two shows, it's fair to ask, how is the show on its own? Tiny Toons Looniversity not only is a worthy successor to Tiny Toon Adventures, but has already begun building its own legacy, separating itself with a running story, new interpretations of old characters, while paying tribute to the comedy and characteristics that made them so likable to begin with. The simplest way I can describe the show is a mix between the harebrained shenanigans of the classic Looney Tunes and the sitcom feel of 2011's The Looney Tunes Show. With 42 episodes to still be released, it's clear from these first 10, the creative team clearly has a great handle and respect for the Tiny Toons as a whole, and I can't wait to see what else they have in store.